Shiva Namaya Om Shanti, Shanti, and Shanti. You see, blessings to be my listener, whether it's a herself or himself, made out literally by pure consciousness, and blessings to be on the speaker, the one who would manifest the words of consciousness through his finite mind and through his finite body. You see. So, yesterday I delivered a retreat. Yesterday I delivered a message. In this message, it was said basically that the origin of all creation, the origin of all that exists, you see, the origin of all creation, the origin of all that exists is nothing but pure consciousness, is nothing but the sense of self-awareness. So yesterday, of course, I delivered the retreat, and after that I also posted on my YouTube channel. You see, are you following me? And there are quite a few people, they joined us recently in the path of truth seeking. And those people are the truth seekers. And they are liking it very much, what they are listening and what they are seeing, because it's liberation from the problems, it's liberation from the fear, it's liberation from unnecessary thoughts. So it's already in you. You see, the same divinity, the same sacred, which speaks. Are you following me what I'm saying? The same divinity, the same sacred, which speaks through me, is the same sacred which is running through you. However, some of us are less cluttered and some of us are more cluttered. You see, but the same sacred is running through everyone equally. You see, it's just that the that who has disbanded themselves from the conditioning, you see, and who has cut the ribbons of unnecessary conditioning and cleared the fog, so now they can see clearly. And if you watch my YouTube channel, I mention that clarity is what I bring you in your perception, because clarity is what's been missing if you know what I mean. Clarity is what I bring in your perception, and clarity is what's been missing. So when we bring clarity, the yogis, when we bring clarity in your perception, you can see each time much clearer. So, as I was mentioning, that quite a few people joined recently and they are liking the videos and the words of truth and wisdom. They approached me yesterday and they said to me that can you please elaborate or explain further the sense of self awareness or consciousness, you see? And it is a very significant topic. Even though we have been talking about sense of self-awareness or consciousness, even though you see me making my opening with the sense of self-awareness and the term consciousness. But this is such a huge topic that no words basically are enough. If you understand what I'm saying to you, this is such a huge topic that no words are enough to elaborate or explain further. Because in the end, you cannot or we cannot understand consciousness through words. In the end, we cannot understand consciousness through a thinking mind. In the end, we cannot understand consciousness through a thinking process or words. You see, we can only dissolve in the sense of self awareness or pure consciousness. You see, hence it is very significant for me to explain further, since these people who recently joined me and they have heard, of course, these terms, and of course, they have heard these words, but they want to know what more. Sense is the origin and the birth origin of all that exists, pure consciousness, you see. So I'm going to answer, and we are going to look into it further. I'm going to answer your inquiry, and we are going to look into it further and in further detail. There is a very good story. There is a very wise story in ancient India. I hope you are following my words. There is a very good story and there is a very wise story in ancient India. And the story is that a little fish, you see, a little fish who is in the sea asked the mother fish. I'm sure I have mentioned this story, but I'm mentioning it again. So more and more people can know about. It's a brilliant story. The story itself would elaborate quite further on consciousness, you see. So the story is basically that there is a little fish, and that little fish asks the mum fish or the mother fish, and of course they both are in the sea. And the little fish asks the mother fish or the mum fish, "Mum, where is the sea or where is the ocean?" You see, "I want to see the ocean." And the mother fish answers, the mother fish replies that you are in the ocean. You see. So that elaborates what consciousness is. One who is looking for consciousness, one who is looking for the self of the sense of self awareness, is basically looking for their own very fundamental state. I hope you are understanding. Is basically looking for their own very fundamental state, is looking for themselves. There is also another story that would elaborate even further. 10 young lads or 10 young guys in ancient India started walking towards a fair. There was a fair, you see, and they wanted to participate in the fair, and they wanted to see that what's going on in the fair out of natural curiosity, 10 of them, you see. So when they were walking towards the fair in the nearby town, there came a river in the way. There came a river in the way, and they said, okay, let's go ahead and cross the river so we can get to the fair in the nearby town. And they crossed the river. When they arrived on the other side of the river, when they arrived on the other side of the river, they said to each other, all 10 of them, that let's go ahead and count and make sure that nobody has drowned. I hope you are understanding to what I'm saying to you. So they started counting. So one of them started counting: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. And they became very sad, and they became very worried because the person counted 9. So they thought that one of them has drowned. I hope you are following me. So they recounted this time, and other one of them, but not the same person this time, and other one of them volunteered for it and said, okay, I am going to count. And then they said, this other fella, he said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You see, he counted 9 as well. And they became even more sad, and they started crying because now they were certain that one of them has drowned. There was a wise man, a rishi, who was passing by, and when he saw them sad and when he saw them crying, so he couldn't take it, and out of compassion he went to the lads and said, what's the matter? And they told him what had happened, that we crossed the river, and after that we are counting, we were 10, but now we are counting 9. So the rishi or the sage or the wise man understood what's going on. He said, okay, all of you just stand in a line. You see, He said, all of you just stand in the line, and they all stood in the line. And then he asked one of them, the first one, maybe, he said, please start counting again. And he the first one started counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And this wise sage, the person, he literally hold his finger and pointed to himself, and he looked at the guy and he said, thou are the 10th. You see? So, do you understand the moral, the bottom line of the story? When you want to understand what is self awareness, when you want to understand what is consciousness, you can only look around it, because you are the one who is trying to understand the fundamental of yourself and the fundamental of everything that has existed in the past, that is existing right now, and the one which would exist, anything and everything which would exist in the future. You are looking the very fundamental of yourself. That is what we understand as pure consciousness, or the sense of self-awareness. I hope you are following my words. You see, if you fully want to understand, I have given you two examples about the little fish and the lads who were crossing the river. But if you want to truly understand the consciousness or the sense of self awareness, the only way to understand it, to experience it. To experience it in a way that you experience to its extreme extent. This is what we also understand as enlightenment. Remember, we have been talking about the term rishi yesterday. I mentioned, of course, the fear of unknown in the same, and that read before I mentioned, if you remember, just remember the word remember. If you remember about the rishi is the one who experiences. Rishi is the one who experiences consciousness firsthand. Or, in other words, we can say Rishi is the one who experiences God firsthand. You see. So, that's the only way to experience your your fundamental state. The fundamental state, if we want to look at consciousness, if we want to look at pure the sense of self-awareness or pure consciousness, then we, through the words or through the thinking process, we can just look around it. However, it would give you a glimpse the how to get there. The goal of human life, if you are following me, the goal of human life is to realize the goal of human life is to realize consciousness or the sense of self-awareness while still remain in the human body. That's also what we understand as enlightenment. Such a person has tremendous focus everywhere. Such a person has no duality. Such a person has no friction in them. All there is pure consciousness. And I am not joking with you. If you go in the surrounding of such a person, if you go in the surrounding of such a person and such a person does not speak a single word, are you following what I'm saying to you? If you go in the surrounding of such a person and such a person does not even speak single word, total silent, you see, this is silent, the person remains silent, the magnitude of his energy or the magnitude of her energy is so tremendous that even if they remain silent, that you would it would be enough to liberate you, you see, at some point. You have heard of Ramana Maharishi? Ramana Maharishi was such a person. He spoke very less, if you are following what I'm saying to you. Ramana Maharishi was such a person. He spoke very less. There are some rare footage and the videos of him because he existed very long time ago, but still they were able to capture him on the camera for a small period of time. You can look it up on YouTube. Ramana Maharishi was such a being, and he mostly remained silent, but he had a band of people around him all the time, you see. So the sense of self-awareness is the birth. The sense of self-awareness is the birth of everything. If you understand what I'm saying to you, the sense of self-awareness is the birth of everything. The sense of self-awareness or awareness is aware by itself. You understand what I'm saying to you? The sense of self-awareness is not aware by anything outside of itself. You see, the only thing which is aware is the sense of self-awareness. You see, when this sense of self-awareness is in you, you see, and you can tap on it by focus. If your mind is if your mind is not going haywire and your thoughts are not scattered and you have created or built certain type of focus, it's easier for you to experience the sense of self-awareness firsthand. The sense of self-awareness is not aware by anything. The sense of self-awareness is self-aware. The sense of self-awareness is aware of itself. When this sense becomes aware of itself, this is the sense. Now follow what I am saying to you. This is the same sense which is running through me right now, and this is the same sense which is running through you right now. This is the same sense which is running through everything. You see, it's the same sense which is running through everything that you have ever experienced and experiencing right at this moment, and and or or would experience. Anything and everything is the same sense which is running through everything, is the same sense which is running through me right now, is the same sense which is running through you. When this sense of self-awareness interacts with itself, when this sense of self-awareness is not aware by anything, it is self-aware. When this becomes self-aware, so it gives birth to life. Life as an energy. Life is not the creator. Life is not the source of creation. Life is not. You see, it gives birth. You see the term give birth. It gives birth to life. You see, it gives birth to life. And then life as an energy. Life as an energy creates forms and creates shapes. If you remember, we talked about that yesterday. The Nama Rupa. You see, the shape and the form. Nama Rupa. We talked about that. So this sense of self-awareness is all there is. You see, yesterday, if you remember, I quoted Eknath Esavaran, who wrote the narration of Bhagavad Gita. And in the narration in that particular book, my spouse Bridget, she actually got me that book. It's a brilliant book. If you read the entire book with tremendous focus, it is enough to liberate you. Eknath Esavaran in this particular book mentions that world, you see, I'm quoting it again, world is the river of God flowing from him and flowing towards him. You see, world is the river of God flowing from him and flowing through him. You see, God is the term for chit, that Sanskrit. God is the term for consciousness. You see, in religious circle you call it God. In yogic culture and spirituality, it is known as self awareness or consciousness. This is the sense all there is. The sense is not aware by anything, it is just aware. However, we have the sense of individuality, excuse me. However, we have the sense of individuality because we have memory and we have imagination. You understand what I'm saying to you? We have memory and we have imagination. We have a mind, and that mind gives us a fake sense of individuality. That's through the perspective of human mind. Through the perspective of human mind thinks God something outside of me. Through the perspective of human mind thinks God is something outside of me. Through the perspective of self awareness or through the perspective of consciousness, it's only consciousness. And in ultimate reality, it's the only consciousness that there is. You see, you understand what I'm saying? Rest is a story, including me and you. What you understand about yourself or what I understand about myself. I'm not joking with you. You see, it is very true. Everything else is a story. The sense of self awareness is the only thing which is aware. Consciousness is the only thing which is aware of itself. Rest is a story. I am telling you the truth because I live that way. Okay? I know it from my own experience. I don't tell you fiction. I don't tell you sci fi. We talked about that yesterday, remember? I'll give you an example so you would understand what is self awareness. You see, I'll give you an example. Remember, not long ago, I said that through the perspective of human mind, which is also a mode of consciousness, it thinks that God exists something outside. But through the perspective of consciousness, there is only consciousness. Consciousness has no awareness of any individual. It is just giving birth. It is just giving birth left and right. It's out of time. You see, it is just given birth left and right. If you understand what I'm saying, it is just given birth left and right. And it is out of time. So it's given birth non-stop. It's never getting tired. It has no physicality attached to it. Of course, a sense has no physicality or any attributes attached to it. It is not possible. That's why it's omnipotent. I'll give you an example. And I have mentioned that before, but as I said, that since the followers, the truth seekers, grew in numbers here on my channel and on social media, we are going to mention that again, okay, to give you an example. I was in a company, I think it was probably last November or October. It's been an year now. Most probably in October. I was in I was in the company of somebody. I hope you are following me. Excuse me. I was in a company of somebody, and this person, this fella, we were having a long conversation about spirituality and about religion. This fella belonged to a particular religion. Of course, I don't mention name of the religion because it's not significant. Okay. Nor I am here, nor I am here to refute a religion. That's not my job. That's petty. Okay. What is truth would stand by itself. You see, I tell always my followers, truth is like a beast. You see, truth does not need to be defended by words. You see what I'm saying? Truth does not need to be defended by anybody, or by words, or by debates, or by force. You see, truth does not need to be defended by anything, by force, or by words, or by debates, or by people. What is truth? Truth is silent. You see, this moment right now, while you are hearing the sound of my voice, and I am bringing clarity in your perception, this moment is the truth, is silent. Can you deny this very moment right now? Can you deny this very moment right now while you are hearing the sound of my voice and you are seeing whatever the visionary perceptions are there? You are seeing me, you are hearing the sound of my voice, you are hearing you yourself wherever you are having this very experience. Can you deny this moment? Of course not. It's not possible. No matter how you look at it, you cannot deny this moment. This moment is real. So this moment is true. This moment is real. Okay. Truth is just like a beast. If you let it loose, it would defend itself. So I was having a conversation with this fella, and he belonged to a certain religion, which is fine. It's his life, and he must have the freedom to choose what he chooses for his life, you see. And he was basically he was telling me about God, and he was telling me a lot of things about God because, of course, he followed a religion, so that's expected from him. But when he was conversing with me, during the conversation, when he was telling me about God, so he was talking about God as it is something outside of himself. You understand what I'm saying to you? When he was when he was telling me about God, he was mentioning God as it is something outside of himself, or it it is something outside of myself. You see, after a few minutes of conversation, it had been made clear to me that he probably is interested to convert me. But of course, that's gonna take a tremendous amount of good luck because that's not happening. You see, because I'm a mystic, I know things through my own experience. Anyway, so as he was telling me about God, he was referring God as God is something outside of himself or myself. And I was listening. As I said, remember, please remember, listening is very important, okay? You don't have to discard, you don't have to accept. There is a third option, which is you can listen. If it makes sense to you, if it has a shred of truth in it, it would automatically resonate through you. Remember, I told you truth is silent. Truth does not come with words, truth does not need to be defended. Okay. So anyway, so in this conversation, when he took a pause in this conversation, when he took a pause, I looked at him and I said, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. You see, I'm explaining in more detail what is self awareness. So I looked, or consciousness, I looked at him and I said, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. You see, very simple question. And the question is so simple that you cannot miss it. And then you tell me the answer, and we'll take it from there. And he said, that's fine. So I asked him, fella, that you have been talking about God as God is something outside of yourself, or you have been talking about God as God is something outside of myself. But follow my words. This is the question. Here we go. Would would that God, the one you are talking about, you see, would that God exist? The I shall follow my words and pay attention, have focus to the question what I'm asking you. Would that God, that the one God that you are talking about, would that God exist? You see, would you know if there's such thing as God? You see, in other words, I said, the God you are talking about, would that God exist? Or in other or easy words, would you know if there is such thing as God if you did not exist in the very first place? You see where I'm going with this? So I said that would you know if there is such thing as God? Or would that God you are talking about exist if you yourself didn't exist in the very first place? And he was just baffled after hearing the question. And he said to me, I do not know. That was his answer. That he said to me, I do not know. And I looked at him and I said, yes, it's close to a very fair answer what you said. You said you do not know. I said, let me elaborate a little further my question, and let me elaborate from your answer too. I said, you said that you do not know. So is it fair? Is it fair to say for me that that God you are talking about would not exist in your experience, as far as your experience is concerned, that God would not exist in your experience? Is that correct? Or it is not correct? Is that true? Or it is not true? And he looked at me and he said, you are 100% correct. That God I am talking about wouldn't exist in my experience if I didn't exist in the very first place. I admit to that. I said, are you following what I'm trying to tell you? I Time for a private meditation session. Anyway, we will just go quickly and sum it up. So he said, you're 100% correct. That God would not exist in my experience. I said, you said you do not know. That is close to a fair answer. But is it fair to say that even if you didn't know, but one thing is for certain, that would not exist in your experience, because now you yourself is not existing in the very first place? And he said, I never looked at that through this way. I said, you see how easy things are if you only focus. All it takes focus. In Kriya Yoga, in meditation, not only we raise the energy of life within the being, but we also do focus. And once you have tremendous focus, you are limitless. That's why Kriya Yoga and meditation has tons of significance. You see, it brings so much clarity in you, and clarity is what needed in our human dream. You see, so I said, of course it wouldn't exist. He said, that is absolutely correct, not in my experience. I said, okay, now follow me. You see, hear my words, pay attention to what I'm saying to you. I said that God wouldn't exist in your experience if you wouldn't exist in the very first place. So now it looks like the existence, if you understand what I'm saying to you, now it looks like the very existence of God is depending on your existence. Is that correct or it is not correct? I asked him. I said, now it looks like the very existence of God is depending on your existence. Because if you didn't exist in the very first place, nothing would exist, including the God you are talking about. You. And he said, that is 100% true. I cannot deny that. I said, so it looks like the God you are talking or you were talking before becomes a concept, and the very existence of you, which is self awareness, becomes God. And he said, yes. So since that time, they don't miss a single retreat, and they have been following me here also. I do not, of course, mention any names or color or gender or race or age, because all these things are abstract. If it is not in the nature, it is not in me. I focus on liberation, you see. Now, before I sum it up, because the clock is on zero right now, on zero, and I gonna wrap it up with an example. And the example is basically that you are watching a movie, you see, and you are heavily involved in the movie because movie is very interesting. Are you following me what I'm saying to you? I am saying that you are watching a movie and you are very heavily involved in the movie that you forget about everything else what's going on, and your friend or a person just enters the room and says, pay attention to the screen on which the movie is being played. Are you are you understanding what I'm saying? A person or your friend walks in the room and the person says, please pay attention to the screen on which the movie is being played. So all of a sudden, you see, all of a sudden, there is a release of tension from the movie, and your attention or your focus goes on the screen, isn't it? Like, it's just like that you take a super thick rubber band and you pull the rubber band, you see. So when you pull the rubber band, there is a tension between two fingers, you see, and then you release the rubber band and there is a release in tension. You see, when you are releasing the rubber band, there is a release in tension too. Just like that, um, there is a release of focus, there is a release of tension from the movie to the movie screen now. You see, is it fair to say that is it fair to say that all there is to the movie is the screen, isn't it? You understand what I'm saying to you? Is it fair to say that all there is to the movie is the screen, but you got involved in the movie? So this experience right now, what you're experiencing, is that movie that we become so fascinated by things and we think it's real, or we have an existence of our own. But all there is to the experience is the Brahman, or self awareness, or consciousness, you see, which is the movie screen, the consciousness, the sense of self-awareness. So the existence what you have experiencing and would experience, existence of everything depending on one's the sense of self-awareness. The one is aware, so everything is being given birth, you see. If we didn't exist in the very first place, nothing would exist in our experience. Please remember that. That's what self awareness is. In Kriya, yoga, and meditation, we bring you close basically to that sense. And there comes a time with your dedication, there comes a time with your practice, you become so close to that you see things more clearly. Then you are not in conflict. You feel more happy. You have more patience with people. You have more patience to deal with chaotic situations.